No Rest for the Wicked is a Souls-like ARPG, so think loot from Diablo or Path of Exile combined with a stamina-based combat and terrifying bosses of Dark Souls. Oh, and sometimes you'll take a break and go fishing because there are also survival and crafting elements. And so today I'm going to go over some tips and tricks to guide your first steps onto the Isle of Sakura, starting with builds and combat, then moving on to the world itself, and finally rounding things out with a few tips and tricks from my own experience. But this is just the early access for No Rest for the Wicked, and some things are going to be changing as the game's development continues. So be sure to get subscribed and then watch out for future videos with updates. First up, let's get into combat. No Rest for the Wicked is a classless game, so your weapon and armor combines to make your build. You don't start as a knight or a paladin. You become a knight because you're wearing heavy armor and using a strength weapon. You become a paladin because you decide to go with more faith and religious stuff. This is your choice, and you can actually change it at any time, kind of. You begin with a random weapon, but don't worry if you don't like it, because you'll find plenty more nearby just by killing enemies or exploring and opening chests. Each weapon has its own unique properties. This can include the weapon range and its moveset. Claymores, for example, are slow and heavy, consume a lot of stamina, but their blows absolutely smash enemies. Daggers, on the other hand, are faster and lighter, good for getting in a quick attack, but they don't have much stopping power. Now, weapons also have attribute requirements. This is where I meant sort of when it came to changing your build. Because if your weapon requires strength and you've built into strength, say with swords and greatswords, well, I can swap between a sword and a claymore as much as I want. But a dagger or a bow is a dex weapon and I might not have the dex to use it. Alternatively, staves are int weapons and I probably won't have the intelligence to use it if I'm a strength build. There's many more combinations, of course. And there's some weapons that require multiple stats as well, maybe something like strength and faith. But currently you can't respec. In the future it's going to be added, and it's going to be fairly rare, so you're probably not going to want to change your build just because you got a shiny new item. Instead, what I do is try out the basic versions of all the weapons, the ones that don't have specific attribute requirements, and see how it goes. Then pick a primary attribute class that you want to play, and invest into it fully, because this allows you to do more damage with that weapon. The runes on a weapon further enhance the moveset. This consumes focus to unleash a special attack. This could be a series of strikes, a jump strike, a ranged attack. There's all sorts of different things based on the weapon. You can even break weapons down and take the rune from one and put it into another, provided that it's compatible. Now, weapons are broken down into various rarities, and they tend to have randomized attributes. White rarity weapons are the most common. They have extra rune and gem slots but no additional stats, so worse baseline but more customization. Blue and purple weapons are rare, and they come with additional stats. The mods on purple items are especially potent, but these purple items are cursed and have a downside. This can be anything from halving your focus to taking additional damage when you're hit. That isn't to say that they're bad just because they have a downside, but it is to say you should be aware of the downside and use them with caution. And then finally, there are rare items that are yellow with fixed stats. They have a full moveset, 4 runes right off the bat, and significantly better stats than the others. However, there's almost no room for customization here. This is someone's weapon, they clearly cared for it and invested a lot into it. You can still enhance it, but you're not going to change how it works. In addition to your weapon choice, your armor choice influences your defense and mobility. Lighter armor makes it easier to move around with a quick hop, whereas in heavy plate you'll take less damage and it'll be harder to break your poise, but you're going to be fat rolling everywhere. Hey, at least you can push weaker enemies out of the way. And so, as you go through your journey across Sakura, you should always regularly upgrade your weapons and armor at the blacksmith, enchanter, and various other vendors. Upgrading regularly is a key part of your progression. And if you find a fight to be too challenging, it's time to farm up some orange shards, rank up your weapon a bit, maybe get a little defense from your armor, and you'll be back in the fight and crushing it in no time. Now, one last note on combat, enemies can broadly be split into 2 categories, light and heavy. Light foes are more agile, and they can be absolutely brutal, especially in the early game, and especially in groups. But a shield or some good armor greatly reduces the threat they pose, and a heavy weapon can easily stagger them. Dive around or block them, and counter with a deadly follow-through. They don't tend to have much health, and while some of them do have shields, most don't have great defenses. On the other hand, heavy foes are likely to smash through your guard, making shields relatively ineffective against them. And they hit wide areas with their sweeping attacks. They also tend to be beefier, but they're a lot slower, and a carefully timed parry gives you a good opportunity to stagger and attack them. So either dash behind them, stay out of range of their attacks, then jump in for a cut, or just parry and riposte. But aside of fight foes, the other main thing you're going to do is explore the island of Sakura. You spend quite a bit of time traversing the world and farming resources, and if you've left an area for a bit, it changes. New enemies spawn, and the resources come back. So as you explore, take a bit of time to look around. This search can yield resources used in crafting, equipment upgrades, or a key that unlocks a whole new area. There's also quite a bit of platforming, so don't be afraid to climb on stuff. After all, what's the worst that can happen? Oh yeah, you can fall to your death. Sometimes climbing on things can be a little bit dangerous because fall damage is very much a thing and gravity is the enemy. Also, as you explore, you'll notice that zones from the world have difficulty ratings: safe, moderate, dangerous, and lethal. This represents the relative challenge of foes within the area. Safe is on level, and lethal zones have vastly higher level enemies. That means you'll do almost no damage to them, and they could very well one-shot you if their blows connect. If an area is extremely dangerous, that doesn't mean you can't go there, but it does mean caution is warranted, and you'll probably want to go somewhere else and farm up a bit if you find yourself dying continually and wasting resources. Especially because another use for your resources is rebuilding the city of Sacrament. You can spend, say, wooden ore to rebuild the inn, after which you can spend the night there. This allows you to recover your health and heal without expending food. Or if you fix up a blacksmith, you'll be able to smelt ores into bars which you can use to upgrade your items. Also, as you improve vendors, they offer a wider range of blueprints and improved crafting facilities. So, upgrading the city of Sacrament is just as important as upgrading your character, and changes made to Sacrament support all of the characters on the realm. No Rest for the Wicked is very much a game about exploring. Don't worry about just rushing to the next boss or the next objective in your main quest. Feel free to get lost in the world, and you'll find the world rewards you for it. There are plenty of really cool weapons that I found, just because I happened to wander off, go into an area where I absolutely shouldn't have been, fought some dangerous foes, killed one of them, managed to take its weapon, and then run away before all of its friends murdered me. So that's about it on combat in the world in No Rest for the Wicked. But here's a few tips and tricks from my own experiences. First up, I found bosses with wide sweeping attacks easier to parry. Even though I'm not particularly good at parrying, I could get it off pretty reliably because they had such a big windup and so much travel time. I also found a lot of the bosses, such as Warwick, the first boss, quite easy in comparison to regular enemies. I think this is because you could often get behind them, their attacks telegraphed well, and you didn't have to worry about additional environmental factors. It definitely didn't hurt that because I was exploring a lot, I tended to be a little over-leveled rather than under-leveled. So in short, combine all those things and you won't have too bad of a time. There's certainly no Abyss Watchers, which I think I died 200 times to before beating it, but then again, Dark Souls 3 was my first Souls game, so maybe I was just really bad. Also, it can be easy to miss the Alchemist quest, and the quest itself can be a bit annoying. Personally, I'd recommend grabbing a shield, or just running through a lot of enemies rather than trying to fight them. But I do recommend doing the quest sooner rather than later, as you unlock the ability to make more blade oils, projectiles, and all sorts of fun stuff that you can use to enhance your journey. Worst case, if you keep dying, it's not the worst thing to come back later, just don't forget about it as you will want to have it all unlocked eventually. To begin the Alchemist quest, head near the Oribund Glades, look for this nicely hidden ladder, climb down and enter the weird glowing blue cave. After all, nothing bad could happen in a weird glowing blue cave. Next up, if you keep dying, or you keep running out of food, don't be afraid to farm and enhance your items. Come back later, go to an easier area. If there isn't really an easier area, consider changing up your build or changing up your playstyle. Remember, this is not about spamming buttons. The combat is slow, methodical, and tactical. You're rewarded for patience. Also, you can check the vendors for recipes to unlock more food, weapons, and armor, or complete challenges and bounties to get even more stuff. And lastly, I asked my community for some of the mistakes they were making that they would advise other people not make. The Alchemist quest actually came up, as did not vendoring crafting materials because you don't know what they're used for. Yeah, this is one that I didn't run into personally because I'm kind of a hoarder, but if you're trying to clear out your inventory, do be a little bit careful. There's some advanced materials like ashes that look like they're useless, skulls, all these things. They're used for crafting. They are quite important. Don't just go vendoring them willy-nilly. And the other thing is that people said to beware of ladders and gravity is deadly, which I fully agree with. And so with that, I'm curious, if you've played the game already a bit, what are some of your tips and tricks that you'd recommend to other people? Be sure to leave them down in the comments below. Now, if you're looking for more No Rest for the Wicked content, don't worry, I've got more coming soon. But for now, I need to get back to playing the game and learning about the weapons and their various movesets. So do be sure to get subscribed and keep an eye out for future No Rest for the Wicked videos. Before I go though, I'd like to take a minute to thank my patrons and channel members for their continued support. For as low as $1 a month, you can help make videos like this possible. And having direct support from viewers means that I can make videos for the viewers instead of having to worry about things like AdSense and the YouTube algorithm. So your support goes a long way in terms of ensuring the channel's future. So far, I've had a ton of fun with No Rest for the Wicked. It was a little bit rough when I first tried it, but after the first 2 hotfixes, it's been an absolute dream. I love this game, I'm going to be playing it a ton, and I can't wait to see where it develops. But that's about it for me today. So thank you very much for watching to the end. I hope you learned something. Good luck on your journey across the Isle of Sakura, and I'll see you again in the next one.